When we talk about individuals with extremely high IQs, one of the most striking characteristics is not just how much they think, but how deeply and continuously they think. Their cognitive processes are rarely linear. Instead, they move in layers, constantly connecting ideas, questioning assumptions, and exploring multiple possibilities at once. What might take an average mind several steps to unpack, they can often grasp almost instantly, and then push even further beyond that initial understanding. This capacity allows them to detect patterns that others overlook. They can anticipate outcomes, identify hidden structures in complex systems, and approach problems with a level of nuance that feels almost intuitive. In many ways, this is the advantage we most commonly associate with high intelligence: the ability to see more, faster, and with greater clarity. But there is another side to this depth, and it is far less discussed. Because their minds are always active, always searching, always refining, it becomes incredibly difficult to simply stop. A casual thought can spiral into a chain of analysis. A simple decision can evolve into an exhaustive evaluation of every possible consequence. What seems straightforward to others becomes layered with variables, uncertainties, and alternative interpretations. This is where the concept of cognitive overload begins to emerge. The same mental machinery that allows for brilliance can also create exhaustion. When every idea branches into 10 more, and each of those branches demands attention, the mind can become crowded. Over time, this leads to a kind of internal noise, a constant hum of analysis that is hard to quiet. And when that noise becomes persistent, it can manifest as anxiety, indecision, or even a sense of paralysis. You see this particularly in decision-making. Faced with a choice, a high IQ individual may not struggle because they lack options, but because they see too many. Each option carries layers of potential outcomes, risks, and long-term implications. The result is not clarity, but hesitation. The fear is not of choosing poorly, but of overlooking a better possibility that their own mind has already suggested. And then there is the issue of mental fatigue. Constant thinking requires constant energy. While others may find rest in routine or simplicity, highly intelligent individuals often find those same states unstimulating, even uncomfortable. Their minds seek complexity, novelty, and challenge. But this means they rarely enter a true state of cognitive rest. Even in moments of stillness, the mind continues to work, analyzing past conversations, simulating future scenarios, or deconstructing abstract ideas. Over time, this can create a quiet but persistent strain. It is important to understand that this is not a flaw in intelligence, but a consequence of it. The ability to think deeply is inherently valuable, but without boundaries, it becomes self-consuming. The challenge, then, is not to think less, but to think more deliberately, to develop the discipline to pause, to prioritize, and to accept that not every thought requires full exploration. In many ways, this becomes a psychological balancing act, learning when to engage that extraordinary depth and when to step back from it. Because ultimately, intelligence is not just measured by how much the mind can do, but by how well it is managed. And for those with exceptionally high IQs, the real mastery lies not in expanding their thinking even further, but in knowing when to let it rest. The mind that can explore everything must also learn to leave some things unexplored. Alongside this intense inner cognitive life, there is another dimension that often goes unnoticed, and that is the social and emotional experience of individuals with extremely high IQs. Intelligence, particularly at the far end of the spectrum, does not exist in isolation. It shapes how a person communicates, relates, and ultimately connects with the world around them. One of the most immediate challenges is the difference in processing speed and depth during everyday interactions. Conversations that feel stimulating to most people can feel predictable or repetitive to someone who is several steps ahead mentally. They may anticipate conclusions before they are spoken, or lose interest when discussions remain on the surface. This is not a matter of arrogance or disengagement, but a natural consequence of cognitive disparity. Over time, this gap can create friction. Communication is not just about exchanging information, it is about shared pacing, mutual understanding, and emotional resonance. When those elements fall out of sync, even well-intentioned interactions can feel strained. The individual with a high IQ may simplify their thoughts to be understood, or remain silent to avoid overcomplicating the conversation. In doing so, they begin to edit themselves, not out of choice, but out of necessity. This repeated adjustment can lead to a subtle but powerful sense of isolation, not necessarily because others reject them, but because they rarely feel fully seen or understood. It is the experience of being present in a conversation, yet mentally elsewhere, not by distraction, but by difference. At the same time, there is a common misconception that highly intelligent individuals are purely analytical and emotionally detached. In reality, many experience the opposite. Their capacity for introspection often extends deeply into their emotional world. They analyze not only ideas, but also their own feelings, motivations, and relationships. This can lead to a heightened awareness of emotional nuance, both their own and that of others. But here again, depth comes with complexity. When emotions are examined as intensely as thoughts, they can become layered and difficult to navigate. A simple feeling is rarely experienced as simple. It is dissected, questioned, and contextualized. This can make emotional experiences feel heavier, not lighter. Instead of passing through emotions naturally, they may linger, amplified by reflection. There is also the challenge of expectation. High IQ individuals are often perceived as capable in all areas, including emotional and social ones. But intelligence in one domain does not automatically translate to ease in another. In fact, the very traits that enhance cognitive ability, such as independence of thought and preference for complexity, can sometimes make social adaptation more difficult. So they find themselves in a paradox. They understand people deeply, yet may struggle to feel connected to them. They can articulate complex ideas with precision, yet hesitate in expressing simple emotions. They are capable of profound insight into human behavior, yet still feel, at times, like outsiders within it. The critical shift lies in recognizing that connection does not require identical thinking, it requires intentional effort. For highly intelligent individuals, this often means learning to value clarity over complexity in communication, and presence over analysis in relationships. It means allowing conversations to be imperfect and emotions to be experienced without constant evaluation. Equally, it calls for those around them to move beyond assumptions, to engage with curiosity rather than expectation, and to appreciate that intelligence and emotional depth are not opposites, but often intertwined. Because in the end, the goal is not to reduce intelligence to fit into the world, nor to reshape the world entirely around intelligence. It is to build bridges between different ways of thinking, so that understanding becomes possible on both sides. And perhaps the most important realization is this: being deeply understood is rare for everyone. Not just the highly intelligent, but choosing to understand others is always within reach.